This month, I made some newer, smarter enemies, created not one, but 2 custom fonts, rewrote all of my map generation code, added in the first handful of sound effects, and made the cards blue. This is the 7th devlog for my roguelike action deck building game, which, until I get time to make a trailer, is just gonna continue to exist under the project name CardCrawler. This month, my goal was to put some serious work on the next 2 themes, and against all odds, I buckled down, I focused all month, and I got them both done. No, I'm just kidding. I fell in like 6 rabbit holes. I did set out with the goal of doing the new themes, but I quickly realized that it might be a better idea to add some dedicated wandering enemies first. If you're new here, or if you don't remember, most of the enemies in the game are themed to match the boss on the floor where they appear. I worry a little bit though that fighting the same 3 to 4 enemies for 10 to 15 rooms in a row is going to get old. So wandering enemies are a special set of enemies who can and will appear on any floor, mixed in with the enemies that you'd normally find there. Their number and type are balanced to match the rest of the floor in difficulty. They aren't intended to be specifically harder than any other room, but the intent is that they'll break up the monotony a bit and keep things fresh. When I wrote the code for themes and enemy encounters, I put in the concept of wandering enemies, but it didn't have any enemies to put into those encounters yet. As a stopgap, to fill that space, and also at the same time to allow me to test the enemies that I had just implemented for the Archives theme, I plugged them into the wandering encounters. This worked amazingly, and it was an idea that I'll definitely use again for future themes, but now the Archive theme is done, and those enemies kind of feel overused, because they're the wandering enemies on the first floor, and all of the enemies, wandering or otherwise, on the second floor. So I decided before plowing into a 3rd theme that I should put in a little bit of time to create some dedicated wandering enemies who could appear on both floors without problems. My first group of dedicated wandering enemies is a small patrol of goblins on the hunt for treasure and loot or food or any number of things you can imagine. There is a basic foot soldier with a spear, a supporting archer with a bow, and a rogue or a thief, who instead of trying to kill you, just robs you instead. He turns invisible, does his best to creep up behind you, and then steals a bunch of gold and runs away. If you let him get too far away, he just despawns and takes all your gold with him. But if you can kill him before he gets that far, you get your own gold back, plus all of his. I spent a week working out visuals for the goblins, doing all the drawings and animations to get them to where I was happy with them. Then I sat down to write code for the goblins, and realized that I was just recycling code from other enemies. The spearmen basically use the same AI as the Shade or the Caddisfly Stinger, while the Archer has a lot in common with the Caddisfly Weber and another enemy that I had during an early proof of concept build, the Ranger. I wanted something special, or unique, just to set them apart, and I had the idea of making them be tactical little cowards. Let me explain. As the goblins spawn in, they partner up in groups of 2. Each partnership will attempt to stand on opposite sides of the player, like a flanking or a pincher maneuver. Then they circle around the player till the time is right. Then whichever partner the player is not looking at will go for an attack. This gives the goblins the unique distinction of not only being the first enemies with some semblance of teamwork, but also the only enemies in the game currently that you can actually block or keep at bay just by looking at them. The hope is that this makes them feel a bit more unique and requires you to learn a different set of movements and reactions, and hopefully once I have a few more similarly unique enemies in the game, it'll keep the moment-to-moment gameplay feeling real fresh. Weirdly enough, the goblins are not what took up the majority of my time this month. My testers have been reporting for a while now that there are some issues with the procedural generation of the map. Too many rooms, too few rooms, starting an elite room, boss room too close to the start, etc. I've known for a while that I would need to rework the map screen. It's needed some kind of cleanup and polish, in addition to fixing the aforementioned bugs. But on top of that, there's some features that I've wanted to add into the map for a bit, like unique backgrounds for each theme to let you know what theme you're in, and in particular, I've wanted to experiment with making you discover the map as you go, rather than seeing the entire layout at the start. My current architecture just really doesn't support that at all. So I sat down to rework the map, fix the bugs, lay the groundwork for new features, etc., but I realized that I don't really want to finalize the map visuals until I deal with another issue, the awful blurry fonts. Because the game is using pixel art, a lot of the rendering happens at lower resolution. If you're playing at higher resolution, the game is actually being rendered or generated at a lower size, and then being stretched to fit to your screen. This does weird things with fonts, especially larger fonts that started out big, then were scaled down to the lower pixel resolution, and then scaled back up to fit to your screen. It results in a blurry, nasty look, which is compounded when the font is drawn with an outline to make it stand out better against backgrounds. After a bunch of testing and experimentation, I decided that the most sure way to fix both issues, and also to allow myself some extra customization, is to create my own font. Specifically, a low-resolution pixel art font with the outline built in already. So I drew up some quick ideas for a new font, learned how to properly space it and import it and all that, but then quickly realized that before I could really settle on a size for the font, I needed to make sure that it played nice with the way my cards are displayed, and that meant that I had to take the rabbit hole another level deeper and revisit the art for my cards. So here's what the new cards look like. It's not completely final, probably. I'll do some additional tweaking as needed, but I shifted them to a different color that I liked better, and I doubled the resolution to make it easier to match the pixel size of the font to the pixel size of the card, and also to fit all the text that I want on the card. I did some testing with the longest name and description that are currently in the game to make sure it all fits nice. I actually ended up making 2 different fonts, one for body text, one for titles and headings and the like, and I added in a new system to replace some of the more commonly used words and terms in the game with icons in the card descriptions. I thought for a while about different colored backgrounds, like you see in a lot of deck building or trading card games to indicate cards with different functionalities, but I couldn't think of a neat way to separate my cards into categories like that. Say, for example, that I want to make attack cards red, energy cards blue, and heal cards green. What color do I make recuperate, which heals and gives energy? What about Leech Bolt, which does damage and heals the user? There's also other cards that don't fit into one of those categories, such as status effect cards like Haste. But if I assign a color to those, what color do I make Energize, which gives both energy and a status effect? The best I could come up with was maybe to colorize cards of different rarities, but I'm not sold on that idea yet. I don't know how much of a difference it'll make in gameplay, so for now, they're all just blue. I like them. At the very least, they look better than the old ones. You might have noticed that although the card is double the old resolution, the image on the card hasn't changed. I'm not sure what the plan is there. It originally just happened because I was testing out the new look for the background, and it was easier to do it that way than to redraw 30 cards for the experiment, but I don't think it looks awful. Usually you shouldn't mix pixel sizes, but where it's a clean ratio of 2:1, I might get away with it. I don't know. What do you think? So now, working back up the rabbit hole, with my font and my new card design in hand, I spent a relatively short period of time rewriting my map generation. It's a lot cleaner now than it was under the hood. I'm a lot happier with it, and I'm a lot more confident that it won't bug out in some random edge case when you roll just the right seed. I don't yet have the ability to hide the map, like I mentioned, but I did lay a lot of groundwork for it, so it'll be easier to add when the time comes. Additionally, I made some changes so the map can be navigated and used with only a controller or the arrow keys. I am planning to have full controller support in the final game, so that step was important. And with the new font and visuals, I think it looks pretty good. There's a few more things that I need to add, but for right now I'm kind of just happy with the general step up in quality across the board that the new font has given me through the whole game. Now, this is not to say that I didn't work at all on the 2 new themes. That was my primary goal for the month at all, and it'd feel bad if I didn't accomplish anything. Although I got sidetracked by the Goblins, and the map, and the fonts, and the cards, and some preliminary tests for music for a trailer, and adding some sound effects to the game, and trying out some new animating techniques, I did also get some time to work on the new themes. I do have 2 new themes selected, which I'm referring to right now as theme number 3 and theme number 4. They currently have 4 new enemies, plus a boss, all of which are planned out on paper, including some rough pencil and pixel sketches for the characters and environments, and I've started to work on some of the scripted pixel art for one of the themes. This month I plan to continue on both, and hopefully finish at least one of them, or at least at a bare minimum, get a few of the enemies finished up and added to wandering encounters so that my playtesters can start to experiment with them. That way when I finish the environments, I have enemies already ready to go. That's about it for this update. I did also do a game jam this month. I may make a short about it like I've done in the past if I take the time to do it. we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I'll be back next month. Thanks for watching.